Hey, this is News from Heaven, and today we're talking about societies of spirits that operate in our mental imagery. Come back! Why are you looking at me like that? Yeah, don't you want to know the nature of your mental imagery? And aren't we looking for what is the mechanism behind the machine of consciousness? Because I've got a lot of complaints being an owner of consciousness myself, and I'll draw them out for you here. No pun intended. Well, I sometimes have memories or thoughts or feelings that I didn't request that just kind of barge in and seem to very much be anti-me in terms of my happiness and ability to, exist in a state that is not disturbed. And then there's also, a lot of stuff is kind of fuzzy, and the most important processes or things that matter the most to us aren't really things you can extract and look at, or are they? What explains the world of consciousness that we're in? This was one of the main points of what Swedenborg was describing. He's saying, look, this is the backstory. This is the missing piece of why it is like to be a person like it is, and that when you see it from its correct perspective, actually, everything that you are most deeply afraid of is nothing to worry about. That's the message I get anyway. Today we're diving into his Journal of Spiritual Experiences, his number 2265. About the wisdom of spirits, especially of angels, and about the inspiration of the Lord's word. Besides the gifts with which souls after death are endowed, spoken of here and there, and I've heard him talk about that everybody's going to be a spirit. Everyone is a spirit. Right now you got a body that is allowing you to be here, but just like in every near-death experience, like, okay, I was looking down at my body, and now I'm out here. And one of the things about being a spirit, which is a mind, is that you can speak more fluently, you can think more clearly, and when the Lord gives it, there is also the gift of being able to, like shine brightly, something that I would be expecting, find out what elements a mental image contains. I didn't even know that was a field. What elements a mental image contains. They scan the scenes streaming into the thought and thereby see in very clear light what elements of falsity it has, what of truth, also what elements of evil and what of good. This is something we touched on in a very early episode of News from Heaven. It was a different instance of this, but I just love getting into this because as I was just complaining about, just think about there are people that are, and it's all of us to a certain extent, mental image. So some perception, a belief, a memory, whatever it is, that can come back and just completely, let's say in a negative sense, completely haunt somebody's life. I've talked to people that were just so hung up on a certain thing that had happened, right? Or a certain story that had been put together, whatever it is, that it just is destroying their sense that they can be a living, happy being in the world. Like, just like, there's no hope for me because of this mental image, because of this system. Maybe you've had it in yourself, had it in somebody else. And it just seems like it's in this internal world, and all the precision that we encounter happens outside of this world. So, yes, we're starting to get it so that we can have these amazing, this is a picture of a CAT scanner, you go in the bottom there or something. If we can look in detail down to the cellular level of what's going on with your tissues and things, and that will just keep improving, and we can very clearly try to look into like economics and why is, this thing going up and this thing going down. Look at these pictures, oh my goodness. We can very precisely draw things, but this stuff in here, it's an isolated world, and it's not one you can really ever have help, like precise help in to get to the bottom of this stuff that really is the most important stuff in our life. Can you, or can you? Because what this is describing angels being able to do is to, when we have ourselves a human mind and something's streaming in here, and there's some picture, whatever yours is, some belief about reality, some interpretation of a memory, some impulse, whatever it is, that you can actually have this divine picking over of that. Like, that they can actually take this thing, all right, let's take it out here and let's put it on the table and examine in detail, what is this thing? If we were to zoom in on it, what's in there? And that they can see, look, this thing which seems just like a single belief, let's say this person So because of the way this particular thing went, I'm a worthless human being. Well, in there's a belief about, who's really at fault for things. There's a belief. There's actually an artificial blame of you that isn't accurate to what was really happening. There's a block here that's making it so you're not able to see the truth that all good is from God and all evil is from hell, and that divine providence is in every detail. So that's blocked off there, so we can't see it. And then there's concerns in here for whatever, and they can actually tell you this is what percentage of this and that. And the idea that it's not just this is some eternal truth that just lives here, that you can remove these elements here. What could be more hopeful than that? Because the thing that seems invincible are these mental enemies that we have. Thereby see in very clear light what elements of falsity it has and what of truth. Like on the positive side, what kind of mix is it? Also what elements of evil and what of good. So there's motivation in there, there's beliefs, and all that is contained in something that just seemed like, it's just an idea. Likewise, okay, was that enough? You're probably saying, that this title was very weird. That's pretty weird, but can you crank it up a notch? Yes. Here. They likewise see how societies of spirits operate in their mental imagery, communicating to them their own, and thus showing what kinds of societies of spirits they are in that state. So this is talking about these particular spirits are able to see what of the other communities of spiritual beings, since in brief, consciousness, according to Swedenborg, is like, it would have been a very bizarre thing to explain back when he was writing this in 17 something. You'll see the dates in a minute when we go through here. But now we could very clearly say it's like the internet. You go into the internet to learn things or to have your opinion shaped. And what is the internet? It's this collective consciousness that we've all inputted into and now draw from, and it's shaped by all kinds of forces and groups and things. That's what consciousness is, except it's based in the spiritual world. And so these angels here, just like if you go to the internet to learn something, you're getting a particular group that's written an article, you're getting people who have commented on it, you're getting the search engine that chooses which ones pop up. There's a whole bunch of different sort of societies of people influencing what you find when you ask a question. Similarly here, there are all these different societies of spirits, each of which is outputting their view into the world, that these angels or spirits are seeing. They're able to tell, why do I believe this? Why do I think like this? Who am I being influenced by? We all are accustomed to this idea that, look, these people are being manipulated by social media, by the internet, and before there was the internet, it was by advertising agencies to want certain things. This would be like us being able to say, oh, well, I feel insecure about this because this advertisement told me that I'm wrong in this way, and I feel upset about this because this group misled me to think that it's these people that are the problem rather than this is the problem. Angels can do that for the things that are not going through a screen or through an ad. They're going right into the consciousness. And so they can do the same for the imagery in us, because Swedenborg would got to the point where he was saying, whenever something negative and false entered my mind, whenever these sorts of confusing things came in, he could say, where's this coming from? Whose agenda is this? And just as when we learn that, oh, that person calling that says they're from the fire company and need money, they aren't really, it's a scam, you can hang up that phone without feeling bad that you're abandoning the fire company when they need your help. That's the situation you can get to when you get this kind of perceptive insight that these spirits have, and that I don't think we necessarily can easily get to the point where you're doing all this weird spirit stuff, but you can definitely get to the point where you can build a framework of truths. If you take, let's say, you saying this world Swedenborg describing rings true to me, and the principles behind it, I'm going to build this infrastructure here, and then when something comes that wants you to worry about thing X, Y, and Z, you can say, well, listen, I have these principles. One is divine providence. One is that usefulness is the greatest joy. One is whatever else is powerful to you. This stuff doesn't fit with that, so I'm assuming it's not in line with what's good and true. So I'm not going to metabolize that and act on it. this is a way we can in our regular life develop the same sort of mechanism. A detour, but I think a useful one. They likewise see how societies of spirits operate in their mental imagery, communicating to them their own, thus showing what kind of societies of spirits there are in that state. I too was enabled to discern this, though faintly. Even Swedenborg, who's pretty, obviously in some kind of condition, if he's really seeing and hearing everything he says he is, he's got something going on, but compared to people who are actually in the next phase of life, in the afterlife, he's still got the damper of the body. When the thoughts of many societies streamed into one mental image or deeper knowledge of some matter, I was inspired to discern the difference of opinions in general, and therefore what the little world of spirits that surrounded me at the time was like. 5 years ago? No. 10 years ago, when I was, eagerly reading Swedenborg for some information on, trying to make sense of the mental world and of life, never would I imagine that I could just go into the strange details of it like this with all of you on the internet, and that we'd find people interested. So I just want to say thanks for going along with this here, because what a strange thing. But what I find with these strange things is if you think about the implications of it and then start to act in your mind in accord with this, that's when you actually are able to make progress. You're able to quiet the mental landscape. Something about this construct does that. So he's saying, look, I could do this eventually for myself. What little world of spirits was around me? Which is just like saying, what's leading to this mental image? If you were on the internet and continued to get this particular worldview that was actually degrading your quality of life and leaving you fearful and everything that's non-productive, you would eventually, if you were trying to figure it out, learn okay, what groups are trying to do this to me and how and why. Swedenborg could learn these are the spiritual conditions I'm in. These are the things that I've unwittingly subscribed to, and this is why. This is like if you've accidentally subscribed to this channel and you're like, why do I get these videos about spirits in my news feed? It's because, that's how it works, and that's how it works on the spiritual level. That we can then go back and say, okay, unsubscribe. Not that you would ever unsubscribe to this channel, but this is what we do on the level of the consciousness. That is the sort of the physical world fulfilling this world that Swedenborg described all this time ago. Angels can see this more clearly, which shows what wisdom those may attain who have faith in the Lord, and that in the other life even spirits of lesser genius know more than an earthly human can know and discern if he or she should live 1,000 years. So this perception, this wisdom can get better and better. At that time, some were carried up into heaven, so that they might see or understand how these matters stand. And from there, they told me that they were now seeing what a great multitude there were of this or that opinion, thus of different opinions appearing one after the other. So they were able to discern quite clearly how many societies then present differed, and how many agreed. And if they had been in the heaven of angels, they would have almost been able to count the societies closest by, although not find out how a more remote heaven influenced them. We'll leave this part for now. This is fascinating because what it's saying is, again, if you go on the internet and let's say you go onto Twitter or something like that, and you can start to pick out, there are these communities of people that right now in the United States of America, there is a run-up to a presidential election going on, and so there's a lot of strong feelings that are going on, and you can go into social media and just media and see there's these groups of people that believe a particular thing, that are unified in something, and they work in a coordinated way to put out messaging that agrees with it, and when they find messaging that doesn't agree with it, they find some way to put a comment below that's counteracting that or offering an alternative or attacking it, whatever it is. Here we're seeing there were a great multitude that were of this or that opinion, that in the same way, what humanity thinks about stuff is influenced by, because all the people who've been here are just there, and now they're upstream from us. They're like the people who are creating that content, but in the upstream from us in the chain of consciousness. So how the humanity as a whole thinks influences what opinions and things we have to choose from, or what the prevailing influence is on our thinking. Anyone can conclude from this. What are we concluding from this? That the Lord knows even the very least details of the universal heaven, as well as in the human race, which is ruled by means of spirits. I didn't know we could conclude that. What all this strange detail that we've just been wading through. To Swedenborg, he's saying, look, this convinced me that everything is taken care of. That the Lord, who, by the way, is the desire to fairly and justly and lovingly help everybody, and to bring what's positive and true to everyone, that God has all that. The force of good is present in every situation. Even the human race here on earth, because this whole mechanism of consciousness that I was describing couldn't function unless there was something, like a matrix in which, just like the internet, sure, it's all these disparate groups are expressing their disagreeing opinions, and that can be chaotic there, but unless there was this amazingly precise network of fibers and satellites and hard drives and computer thing number 2 and computer thing number 7, you couldn't have that discussion at all. There has to be some kind of technological unity there. And in the case of the Lord, it's not just, I'll provide the platform, you guys do whatever you want. It's this whole thing, even though it seems impossible, I am slowly moving this Rubik's Cube, which, by the way, if you've ever done a Rubik's Cube, which I haven't successfully, it just looks like chaos, 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 chaos. It's done. That's what God is doing through all these means. For it is a gift of the Lord, here we go. Here's him explaining that a little more. For it's a gift of the Lord that spirits and angels are able to know such things. A gift that is lessened or increased at his good pleasure. Know such things like know how they're being influenced by the rest of the spiritual world. And anyone can also see that the Lord arranges and keeps in order all things down to the very least details, as I have also just grasped by an angelic mental image. Remember, he's just journaling this. He's saying, just remember, I saw amidst all this weird stuff. And that is the Swedenborg experience in a nutshell. Sure, you're talking about spirits and you're talking about bizarre stuff. And what does it lead to, though? It leads to something that's not strange at all, which is that it's going to be okay. The message is something that you very much can put on a big screen and make a movie about, and everyone will resonate with it, even if the ways to get there is as complicated and strange as, the worlds of microbes and everything else we've discovered that seems strange in the beginning. In short, every single mental image and every single little flash of understanding and tiniest feeling is in its own order, or has its own place from the general order that flows in. Even though it can feel like chaos, there is a plan there. This cannot but seem incredible to anyone, but still it's true. For otherwise mankind, a spirit or an angel, could not have even the least idea, as I have been shown by plain experience, and as was corroborated by those who have been carried up into the realm of that light. To continue to milk this metaphor for way more than it's worth, you would to do a simple thing. We this mundane thing that now you have your cell phone. Do you even call them cell phones anymore? You just call them phones. And somebody says, "Hey, where's the doctor?" Oh, the doctor's there. Hey, what is the weather going to be on Friday? Oh, the weather's there on Friday. What was Constantinople or Timbuktu, and how was the history of this city and 4,000 years ago? Oh, I found it. That stuff seems so mundane, and yet there's this amazing amount of order had to go into making that. You ever think about your ability to just imagine something? Don't think about a bear. You're thinking about a bear. How does that work? And how do people have insights and grow and change? What's the mechanism of consciousness? There is this whole order in the spiritual world that leads to the spiritual experience of consciousness, which we are experiencing appended to a physical body, which we call life. I have been shown by plain experience, as was corroborated by those who have been carried up into the realm of light.
of that light. When they're carried up into that realm, it is quite high overhead, but a little to the front. Since we have another half a minute here, what I feel like is make a pretty hard right turn, although not right turn, left turn, I don't know, just a turn to a direction. He's mentioned this in the title, but so far, it sort of seemed like we're talking about something else. They observe particularly that there is an inspiration of everything written in the word of the Lord. For now it appeared to them, and how much streamed into the words being written by me. So these maybe this very words he's writing here. In fact, not only into the general sense, but even into the individual words and images of the words. Indeed, it looked to them as if there were someone holding my hand and writing, while supposing they themselves were doing the writing. I was also inspired to realize this by means of a spiritual mental image. In fact, actually to feel it. And once before that it went into the very least detail of each tiny letter that was being written. From this it is as clear as day that the word of the Lord is inspired down to every single letter. So he's saying the Bible, right, and that which is the current iteration of what he calls the word, was inspired down to the letter. And any of us could be, or that he was being locked into some kind of flow. Like, is he saying that these words were inspired as well? I don't know. That's something that you got to try to feel out. And all of it is to say, the only way we can really test ideas that are being presented as to are they true or not in a spiritual level is to think them through and try to see, does life really work that way? Because we don't have, as of right now, the precision instruments to really measure that. Just like, here we have this promise that there is precision in everything. You could get down and really have explained to you, this is why you feel like you do. This is what's been causing the actual problems for you in your life, and here's the solution, and the solution's good. Okay. Great, that's the news from heaven. Thanks, that was just a ride and a half, and I wouldn't go on it with anyone except for you. And if you want to, let's go even farther, join us for the Off the Left Eye experience. This is happening this summer. You can come spend a whole weekend with us, get into these ideas farther, see if we can't continue to make them something that, strange as they start, ends up with something that improves life for us and improves lives for all the people that have to interact with us as we go through the world. Thank you for looking through this. It's been a lot of fun.